with Sif Hay, and we'll start with the tour. Um, and we're getting into, we talked last time about bones and bittel, and now we're getting into some of the basic mechanics of bittel about, when you need 60 and how Hanan works, and it's pretty important stuff. Here, why don't I ask Isaac Cowie to read the tour?
Which one? Where are we?
The tour Sadi Tet Sif Hay.
Okay.
כתב בספר המצוות.
Yeah. כתב בספר המצוות שצריך החכם לחקור אם נתנו מים בקדרה אחר שנתנו בה האיסור שאותן המים שנתנו אחר כך אין מצטרפין לבטל האיסור. ולי נראה שאין צריך שאפילו אם הוסיף מים אחר כך, אם לא כיוון כדי לבטל האיסור מצטרפים דכאין מלן כל האיסורים שריבה עליהם שוגג מותרים במזיד אסורים. Okay, so basically the smog says that you need to have a Chacham come and investigate whether or not you added water to this pot after the Isser was put in the pot or before. Um, uh,
Or
and
well, assuming that I assume that there was water before, but did you also put in
right,
after?
did you add extra, like
Right.
this extra water that you're adding to the pot?
And therefore, when you come to the rabbi sees 60 against the piece, but maybe there was really 40 against the piece originally. And the fact that it's 60 is because the guy added water.
Yeah,
So maybe I should ask him, did you add water? When did you add water after the piece fell in?
right. But according to the tour, it seems that you don't actually need to do that because even if you added water after that, if it's not established that you look at um sorry.
Mitzdarfin. The key
Sorry.
word is
No,
mitzdarfin.
no, no, no. I'm just trying to make this translate in a way that makes sense. In English. Sorry. Um, if it's if there's not enough that to tell the Easter when it's added to everything else in the pot, like the water and whatever's else in the pot, um, we have this principle that all Isurim that you add something to it that will make it batel in theory. If you do it b'shogeg, it's mutar, and if it's you do it b'mezid, it's aser.
And what's so the tour is assuming that he did it b'shogeg or b'mezid.
Well, he's assuming you did it b'shogeg.
He's assuming he did it b'shogeg. What's shogeg, by the way? What does it mean,
Well,
shogeg?
that's what we're going to fight about all through the post game. Um,
Well, okay, we're going to talk about different kinds of shogeg. But let's take a working definition. What is shogeg means by
like
accident,
like
or
b'shot by accident, like you didn't mean to in some way.
what about if I just don't know the law? Is that called shogeg?
Um,
So it's going to come out in the siman that yes, that's also definitely shogeg. If
okay.
you don't know the law and you thought that you could add afterward, that's also called shogeg, because we're going to talk about like hamikaven, but he did it b'shogeg. It's two different. Like he did it intentionally, but it was still b'shogeg. It's possible he did it intentionally, and it was still a shogeg because he thought that you were allowed to do it. Rabbi Joel.
Well, right. I know. I was thinking, not that they're always consistent, but I think right. The Shulchan Aruch talks about in Hilchot Yom Kippur, right? That if the kahal is b'shogeg about something, and you know they're not going to listen to you if you tell them that that's like asur, then they're b'shogeg because they don't know the law. But you know that if you tell them the law, they're not going to listen to you. Then you don't tell them the law, right? You
Right.
know that
Mutav shiyu shogeg v'al tiyu mizidim. Right.
exactly.
Don't
Yeah.
necessarily tell people something you know they're not going to do.
Yeah. So shogeg definitely often comes up as a sense of like I just
Right.
don't
But
know the
in
law.
this siman, I'm just telling everybody, in this siman, it's definitely for sure that shogeg is considered is also when you just don't know the law. So we're not. So it's going to be shogeg, and and therefore we have this rule. This is the rule that you got to like sort of memorize. Kol isurim well, I'm not gonna. I see. I don't have memorized, but kol isurim she Hosif aleihem b'shogeg mutarin. In other words, that's what he says it a little bit differently. Kol isurim sheriba aleihen shogeg mutarin. That's the key halacha. Any isur that you did the riba aleihen b'shogeg, then now the thing is mutar because it's got rov now. It's got our majority. Here, riba doesn't necessarily mean rov, it could mean 60. Now read on a little bit more, Isaac.
Okay. ואין לחוש שמה יבוא ולרבות במזיד, שאם באנו
By the
לחוש...
way, there's another girsa, which is Shema Kiven, and it reads slightly better. So read it like that, Shema Kiven.
ואין
Ve'en
לחוש
lachush.
שמה כיוון לרבות במזיד, שאם באנו לחוש לזה, גם לא נאמין לו מה שאומר שלא ריבה, or לא כיוון. Okay, so we shouldn't be worried that this person didn't, that this person did intend to add water or other stuff intentionally to Mavatal this Isur.
Bemazid is not shogeg, which means that he knows what he's doing,
Right.
and he does it. Maybe we should worry that the guy did it in bemazid, and then mazid is usher. It wouldn't. The bittul doesn't take effect.
Yeah, but then if he points out the problem with that is that then once you stop trusting them on that, it all sort of unravels because then you also aren't going to be able to trust them if they say they didn't add anything to it or when did they, right? Like there just has to be a point at which you accept that people are telling the truth.
And you can start second guessing anything he says. But this is similar to a concept we have called migo. If you think about it, it's like kind of like a migo. Migo in the Gemara says, what does migo in the Gemara mean? Anyone? Here, Josie.
We talk, but it's literally, but it's if I could have told a better lie, so I'm believed because if I really wanted to lie, I could have told a stronger lie.
So what would the stronger lie have been, the better lie?
It was like that when I got here.
Right, that he didn't reba, he didn't add any water. So why would he start telling me I put it in by accident? Just say he didn't put anything in if he's going to try to trick us. So therefore, we're not going to worry that he did it that he did it intentionally when he says he did it by accident. So therefore, we can assume that he did it by accident, and therefore we don't even have to ask him, because worst case is he did it, and if he did it by accident. So let's not even ask him. So we don't have to do the chakira. And now he goes on just to close up all the, to close up all the loose ends. Aval.
אבל המכוון להרבות, אפילו הוא מין במינו וההתר רבה על האיסור שהוא בטל מן התורה, אלא שחכמים הטריחו 60 אינו בטל, כיוון שריבה במזיד. וכתב הרמב"ם דווקא למבטל עצמו, אם הוא שלא כאן סינן לאוסרו עליו, או למי שכיוון לבטלו בשבילו, אבל לאחרים שרי. Okay, so but if you're looking at someone who intended to add this this water, even if it's min b'mino, and so really all you need is rov, and it'll be
and there was rov, so when he added more, he really didn't change anything in a Torah level. It was already batel. He added more to get 60 because the rabbis require you 60.
Then it's not batel because you intentionally added stuff to it in order to batel it. In other words, if you're trying to play the system will play you. Okay, and then the Rambam says that
there's a kanas, there's a fine on somebody who doesn't bemazed. So if he did it bemazed, if he actually did do it bemazed, then what can we? Then it's going to be usher, even if it's only an issur d'Rabbanan, and the adding of the water was only a marginal benefit, only a rabbinic benefit.
Yeah. So the Rambam says that for the person who is mavateling this Isur, that person can't eat it themselves, or if it belongs to them, or if someone intended to batel it so that they themselves could eat it, even if they didn't own it, they can't eat it. But if for other people, they're allowed to eat it.
Excellent. Okay. Now, can somebody summarize for me, or attempt to summarize the first Beit Yosef? He says, not the first little tiny one, but the first paragraph there where he says, where he talks about whether he likes does he like what the Sefer Mitzvahs writes, or does he disagree with it?
I can try and summarize it.
Yeah, go ahead.
He says that basically the debate between the smog and the Tur hinges on how you fall on Rabbeinu Ephraim, which is basically the smog holds by the Ri, who says that when the Isser originally falls into the pot, then you have Hanan for the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you add any water after that, it's going to have to be 60 times Kol HaYisur, right? But the Tur, who like the Yosef Karo himself, holds by Rabbeinu Ephraim that there's only Hanan in Basar V'chalav, would just say, no, when the Isser falls into the pot, there's no Hanan there, which is why you don't need a Chakira.
Right. Very well said. This is very important for everyone to remember, really, because it's going to go through all the studies that we're going to do, or that we're in the middle of doing, which is that Rabbeinu Ephraim holds there is no Hanan in Shar Suri, and that's the way that the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch paskin. But the Smak and the Smag, both the Sefer Mitzvahs Gadol and Katan, and the Ramah hold that there is Hanan in Shar Suri. So when the Sefer Mitzvah says that the Chacham needs to lachkor, it's because he holds Hanan, and there could have been Hanan. And when in others, the whole thing could have turned to 60. But when the Tur says, I don't agree, that's because he says, I don't hold Hanan. It's almost like the Tur didn't understand that the reason why the Beit Yosef, why the Sefer Mitzvahs wrote what he wrote is because he holds a different din. He holds Hanan, and therefore you're going to need to find out, did Hanan occur? And when he added this water, would it really need to be 60 times the whole mixture, because the whole mixture became usser? And the fact that he added a little bit more to make 60 against the original usser is irrelevant, because we have Hanan. That's what the Sefer Mitzvah says. And the Torah says, well, I don't hold like that. Okay. Any questions or comments on the Beit Yosef? Anybody understood it differently? No? Okay, so we're not going to read the Beit Yosef, just because we all understand it, assuming. Now's your chance to say you don't understand something. So let's look at the Darkei Moshe, which is Bet in the Darkei Moshe. He doesn't 100% like what the Beit Yosef says. So maybe Max, you want to read?
Sure. Okay. B'tzarich iyun lama kasav stam de'ein tzarich lakoras achar zeh darei lefi dvarav v'makom shechanan kagon b'vsar b'chalav tzrichin lechakira zo v'haya lo lefarish. So we need to figure out why the Torah just says that you don't need this chakira, because it would make sense based on his logic that when Hanan
No. Well, no. I would say it's really commenting on the Beit Yosef. Well, okay. In other words, no. Why did you're sort of, it's complicated a little bit. I think it's saying, why did the Torah say ein tzarich lachkor? Because lefi devarav, who's le devarav? The devarav of the Beit Yosef. It's got to be
okay.
Because I don't think the Torah really explained this point about, he didn't mention anything about Hanan.
Right. Okay.
No, but it's Dvarav of the Torah, because he's saying the Torah in general holds, he's still going to hold Hanan and Basar V'chalav. In light of the comments of the Beit Yosef, we should understand that the Torah would have to be more specific, that he's talking about Shari Surim, not Basar V'chalav.
Either way you say, but it's the Torah with the understanding of the Torah according to the Beit Yosef. It could be the Torah, I'll grant you that. But it's certainly the Torah as the Beit Yosef explained him. which is that the whole question hinges on the question of Hanan. And what's his point? If the whole question hinges on Hanan, then what should he have said?
He should have said that in a place where we hold Hanan, which is the Chulei Alma Basar B'chalav, that you need to investigate.
Right. If milk fell into meat and then he added water, so I need to know if he added water before or if there was already that size, that volume of sauce. So then I should have said do the Hakira. Don't tell me a blanket statement. Don't do a Hakira. Okay, go on.
ועוד, לפי מה שכסבתי לאל סימן צדי בייס, אנו נוהגים בכל איסורים חנן, ואם כן, אנו צריכים לחקור אחר חקירה זו בכל איסורים לפי דבריו. And by the way, for we who hold Chanan b'shar Isurim, then you would need the Chakira always.
Right, according to his words. Again, I'm tempted to think that his words is really, I think it's easy to understand it as the Beit Yosef. The Beit Yosef's explanation.
Okay.
So in other words, he's saying like this. First of all, according to that, we are going to have a tremendous chumrah, that we're going to have to actually do what the Sefer Mitzvah says, because we follow like the Sefer Mitzvah about Hanan. And secondly, the Beit Yosef himself, or the Tur himself, should have said, do the Hakira when it's Basar B'chala.
Yeah.
Aval
נראה לי, דאין דבריו נכונים, משום דכסב רבנו, דקיימלן כל האיסורים שריבה עליהן בשוגג מותרין, קאי הכל איסורים, אפילו בבשר בחלב, אף על גב דלכולי עלמא חנן סבירלי, דאפילו הכי אם ריבה שוגג, אף על גב דאין שישים לבטל כל הגדרה, אפילו הכי שרי, דמצטרף כל ההתר יחד לבטל האיסר הראשון שנפל, הואיל ונסרבה בשוגג. Okay. Right, I think the Devar here definitely is Beis Yosef.
Because he's going to distinguish it between Rabbeinu. Who's Rabbeinu?
Right. The Tur.
Rabbeinu is the Tur.
Yeah.
So he says, as according to his words, because right. Then when you explain because Rabbeinu.
Right, when the Torah talks about, when the Kol says, the Torah says Kol Isurim, and seems to be talking about Kol Isurim, and if that's the case, then even for the one who,
even Basar B'chala,
right, that's Kulei Alma.
No, he's saying like this. He said Kol Isurim. He says, in other words, he said the Torah said you don't have to do this Hakira for all Isurim, including, in other words, that which Rabbeinu said, Kol Isurim Sheriba Alein Shogig Mutarin. That's that line we said we have to remember, right? That's exactly a quote. Kol HaIsurim, that's a quote. I'm looking in the Torah now. Kol HaIsurim Sheriba Alein Kol HaIsurim. That's also Basar B'chala. So it can't be because of no Hanan, because Basar B'chala has Hanan. So when he said Kol HaIsurim, he was talking about also where there's Hanan.
Right. And if it's the case that Riba B'shogeg is mutar even with Basar B'chalav, then it must be the case that Hanan can't be the distinguishing factor here.
And what does he say? Afilu hachi shari. Even so, even if it is Hanan, it's shari. It's permitted.
Right.
Because all the heter, and don't talk to me about Hanan, all the heter joins together since he did it b'shogeg. The second heter, along with the first heter that was in the pot, and it joins with the second heter. Since he did it accidentally. Once we have a rule. It's mutter. Don't tell me what circumstance, whether it was Hanan, not Hanan. I would say like this almost. The klal of kol shogeg, kol hamar b'shogeg mutar is a more important klal than the klal of Hanan. It overrides the klal of Hanan. It uproots Hanan and says, no, you did it b'shogeg, there's no Hanan already. Even in Basar B'chalav. And that must be what the Tur holds.
Right.
It's not saying that he holds that. He's just saying that's what the Tur holds. Just to be clear.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. V'had
amrinan Hanan, hainu im ivru b'mezid. De'az amrinan Hanan, uvi'inan shishim neged kol ha'eser. right? So there we do
So
say
there's like
Hanan.
a huge, limit. I don't know, parenthetical observation, not parenthetical observation. A huge limiting factor on Hanan. Hanan is only where you did it amazing. Anytime it's shogeg, no Hanan. Always amazing, right?
Right,
Amazing concept.
Uh-huh.
Anytime you did it b'shogeg, there's no Hanan. Whoever thought of such a thing, right? This is because we think of Hanan as like a physical occurrence, something that actually happens, and now we're saying it's a legal occurrence. So if you did it b'shogeg, then no Hanan.
Okay, the imlav lekule alma aser afla acharini delo miskaven levatel beginayhu aval lididei ol mishmekavim levatlo bishvilo afilu below chanan aser kilikaman. And if we didn't need 60, then it would be aser for everyone, even for someone else, which would be against the Rambam.
What do you mean if we didn't need? Wait a second. If we didn't need 60, explain that.
No.
No, maybe you're right. Just get me explain it.
I thought the V'im Lav was about Ba'ina and Shishu Neged HaIsser. No?
Oh, we needed 60 against Kol the Isser. In other words, if there was Hanan, if he did it b'mezid or something, then we would need 60. V'im Lav. And if what? Im Lav what?
Oh, if there wasn't 60. Yeah.
Right. If there wasn't
right,
60.
sorry, yes. If there wasn't, yeah. Now I see what I said. I just said it wrong. If there wasn't 60 there, then Hanan would kick in such that it would be usher for everyone and not just for the person
right.
for whom
because he did it b'mezid.
Because
he did it b'mezid.
Yeah. Right.
Go ahead. Okay.
Right. Okay. Oh, all right. So that's the piece about Hanan. Oh, Ikala Meimar, Da'af Im Nisarev.
Nachum, can I jump in here for 1 second? Because I think Max, you missed the last line there, right? He's saying, but for that person or the mishmikaven levat lo bishvila, the person that you're cooking this for, or whatever it is, even without Hanan, it's asur if it's done b'mezid. In other words, if you
yes, very good.
Yeah. If you add b'mezid and there's no Hanan for those two people, it's asur. If you add b'mezid and there is Hanan, you don't have 60 against the entire new isur that's like really a ribal against it, then nobody can eat it at that point. So,
right, because it's just a Hanan. It's just a Hanan case. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Oh, Ikala Meimar Da'af Im Nisarev B'Shogeg Ikala Meimar.
So now he's giving just a bit before you. He's giving a second pirush.
Right.
It says, alternatively.
Yeah. Okay, so another way of thinking about it, Da'af Im Nisarev B'Shogeg Ikala Meimar Chanan Ve'af Agav De'Kaimalan Kol Isurim Shiribale Hem Shogeg Mutarin Hainu Dafka Hecha Delo Noda Ta'arovos Kodem Shiriba. Aval le'achar shenoda ta'aravos lo mahani ma shiriba achar kach v'lachein amrinan Hanan v'zeh ha'teirutz nachon. So the other way of thinking about it is that even if you did it b'shogeg, there still could be Hanan if you knew about the forbidden mixture happening before you added something.
In other words, you need a combination. Let's put it in like a mathematical way. You need a combination of lo noda, you don't know that the mixture occurred, and shogeg, and you were mosif alav, you riba aleihem shogeg. In other words, you accidentally added, and you didn't even know that and you did know that there was a tarovet there. You did know there was a tarovet, and you add. Am I correct? Let me read it again. Ikala meimar da'af im nitarev b'shogeg. Even if you did it b'shogeg, even if you accidentally added water, ikala meimar chanan afal gav dekaimelan. Even though you would normally say it should work, but hainu davka hekade lo noda tarovet kodem shiriba. Aval la'achar shenoda tarovet Lo mehani mashariba. So in other words, it needs to be that you don't know there's a tarovet and you accidentally added, which is actually reasonable. You didn't know there was a tarovet and you accidentally added because what is accidentally though? Accidentally must be
You just
kind of
added water.
anytime you added water. Well, how could it be amazing? Then you'd have to be no. It'd have to be you did it by accident. No?
Uh,
If you didn't know there's a tarovet, how can you add to that the criteria that also you did it b'shogeg? And only
I was
then
That is the shogeg, isn't it?
right.
you're saying the fact that he didn't know it was a tarovet means that he's adding is b'shogeg always. So then it really just comes down to one criteria. But Joel is gonna. Joel, you want to clarify my
Yeah,
question?
I took it as meaning that the shogeg here was like that you can do it b'mezid and know and not know there's a tarovet. Well, I don't know, can you? It was kind of a case where you didn't know till after you added that the isur had fallen in the first place, is the way I understood him talking about it. In other words, like I'm cooking and I'm like in different steps of my recipe, I put something in, then I put some more water in, and then I go look at the container. I'm like, oh my gosh, it doesn't have a hashgacha, right? Kind of thing.
So you say so you added before you knew that you put an it. So when you put the water in after you put the isser in, you didn't know that you put an isser in. So that's called shogeg.
Exactly. That's called lo noda, and then the shogeg is the fact that you were just, you can't. I don't think you can have lo noda and mazid, right? That those can't can come
That's what I'm
together
saying. So why does he add shogeg?
because you can have what you can have is noda and shogeg, right? You can have noda bein time and still shogeg kind of case, right? I
And
know I
that's
dropped
no, and that doesn't help.
it doesn't help, even though that's still shogeg. Like I didn't know that I can't add to my thing
But I
to be.
knew there was isser there. Then it doesn't help. So it's a little bit different from the first explanation, right? The first explanation said as long as you did it b'shogeg, it's mutter. And now we're saying no. You also have to do it. It also be that you didn't even know that there was a mixture here. So now my idea of my knowledge of the mixture is what creates Hanan essentially. Reuven?
Yes, I guess my question is twofold, but first, I was confused about what it is that you are or are not supposed to know. And I thought noda or lo noda tarovos was more about the ratio and not about the actual presence of the isser. You're saying it's you know or you don't know that an isser is present at all.
I think so.
That's what's going on. So then if it's hecha de lo noda tarovos kodem sheriba, and that's the case in which we can apply this principle of b'shogeg mutarin, I'm not sure how that works. Because you are not aware that there's a tarovis at all.
So then every
But
time you add will be b'shogeg. That's kind of what I was saying. That was my
right, but
difficulty.
you don't even know that there's an issue in the first place. So I guess
Exactly.
it's just a little like
How could it be
okay.
b'shogeg? How could it be b'mezid? How could it ever
No,
be b'mezid if you don't even know that you have an isser here? So
yeah.
let me look at it again. Wait, give me a
Well,
minute.
the previous explanation before he brought this in was potentially shogeg where you don't know that you're not allowed to do that. So I know the taroves in the old explanation, and my shogeg is it's like, oh no, I better add some water, and I didn't know that that's not allowed. That's the old version of shogeg. You said that in the beginning that there's a not knowing the halacha could be part of the
Yes.
shogeg. So that's the old version, and then the mazid is I know I'm not supposed to do that, and I put the water in anyways. But in the new version of shogeg, which seems a little bit more logical, I didn't know that there was a tarovas at all. I added water as a natural course. That's normal shogeg. Mazid is only when I know there's a tarovet.
Right. So there's really only one criteria. That's my point. But the way it sounds, it says, oh, let me read it one more time. Oh, ikele meimar, da'af im nitarev b'shogeg. It joined b'shogeg. Fine. You added b'shogeg to afterwards. Ikele meimar Hanan. There still will be Hanan. Why? Afagav de even though we would normally say no Hanan. Hainu dafka heka de lo noda. De lo noda hatarovet. Kodem shiriba. אבל האחר שנודע תערובת, לא מהני מה שריבה אחר כך, even though it was בשוגג. That's what he's saying. ולכן אמרינן חנן. In other words, even though you knew it was, that's his point. You knew it was a tarovet. Now shogeg is not going to help you. If you don't know it's a tarovet, then anytime you add will be mutter.
But what
But
is
if
that
you
shogeg?
what?
You said
Well,
shogeg's
anytime
not
you
going to
add,
help you.
basically
Maybe that
anytime you
shogeg
add,
is it possible? I mean, like I splashed another
you
thing in by
couldn't possibly
accident
do it
fully?
b'mezid. If you don't know the tarovet, then you couldn't possibly do it b'mezid. Because what are you doing b'mezid? You don't even know there's an issur. You don't even know there's a problem here. But the point is, on the other side of this equation, when you do know that there's a tarovet, then accidentally slips out of your hand and water falls into the pot,
That's
doesn't
silly.
help. It's only in that case that he's talking about that the shogeg doesn't work. Whereas previously we said in such a case shogeg works, because as long as you do shogeg, it's mutter. Shogeg was overriding, Hanan, and now we're saying no. Hanan is not overridden by shogeg. The question is, when does Hanan happen? Hanan only happens when you realize that there's a tarot.
So
Okay.
I have a question. No. So
Yeah.
is this one of these weird observability type things where you say it doesn't exist until you actually notice it? Like if milk falls into your chicken soup, our classic example, right? And you don't realize it, but it might actually be Hanan. But you just don't really. Is it now? And you serve it
Right.
up. Now everybody.
You're saying, why is my knowledge of it have any relevance? You're saying
Right. It
either there
seems
was
like
Hanan or there wasn't Hanan. Either it mixed or so I can give you an answer that this is the way I think about it. Because let's say you're pouring milk in a stream. So, right, it doesn't pour it instantly. It takes time. It takes if a non-zero time for the water to go in, for the milk to go in. Why don't I just say that the first half of the milk that went in, oh wait, sorry, that doesn't make sense. I'm just saying, like, you always have an issue whenever something falls in of maybe I should divide it up into parts. I have to at a certain point stop and say, now, Joel, you want to say something?
I want to hear yours first, and then I'll see if I.
In other words, it's a little bit hard to formulate, but like, if many, many pieces fall in, it's actually like a chumrah. If many, many pieces fall in, I have to view it as one falling. When do I call it one falling? If they fall in one after the other. If I would say it happens like one drop and then another drop and then another drop, and I didn't observe any of that. But if I did observe it, then each drop as it falls in is maybe batel. And then the next drop is batel, the next drop is batel, which we're going to see later. Or at least an opinion like that. But if it all falls in it, but if I didn't see it, then I can view it as like one falling. And therefore it's going to be more problematic. There always has to be a kind of way of making a fluid event into a discrete event. And what makes it discrete is my knowledge of it. That's yeah, Joe. That's
I like that. I have something kind of different.
That's good. Good. Could you repeat that? I like it so much. Say it again.
Repeat it.
Yeah. See if you remember it.
I don't know. The fluid. We have a fluid event has to be made into a discrete event because if it would be a fluid event, then it might have different dinning. It might get batel as each drop falls in. So I have to have some method of. I don't think it's Schrodinger. I don't think it's really related to Schrodinger, but I have to have some method of turning a fluid event into a discrete event, and say this is a singular event, and the singular event is this milk fell in, and don't view it, don't cut it up.
You're giving a definite, for my language. You're giving there has to be a definition of what the Misa is.
Yeah, okay. Misa is when is it Misa finish? When I notice that it happened. Until then, it's all one long Misa.
So Josie has a point.
What's her point?
Well, I heard it the same way. Is that if you observe, it's one thing. You don't observe.
Yeah. It definitely relates to observance. But I'm trying to say
he and Heisenberg,
But the question is, yeah, But Heisenberg is not talking about turning
I
a
know, I'm
a
sorry.
fluid event into a discrete event. He's just
Right,
talking about
okay, I'll take that, I'm sorry,
yeah,
okay,
statistical. He's talking about statistics and reality. It's too
right.
complicated for me, but Joel will give a share on it, about it later. No, you want,
Well, I don't know if Rav Joel wanted to say something before I ask the question.
No, I just wanted, I mean, I wanted to add into the whole thing that remember, Hanan is not about Tom. I think it's important to remember, right? It's about, it's not about the taste reality, it's about some other reality. So it isn't maybe in this case of, I like Rav Nachum's formulation of when is the event over? Or, it could be some sort of, human recognition of the event reality. And so like we don't have to, Tom is that's the weird thing because I think it comes weird of like what does your knowing have to do with how much flavor it adds? Actually, it's irrelevant how much flavor it adds in Hanan. It's not about that.
mhm. Right, because Hanan, especially in Shari Surim, is kind of weird because the time is totally gone. It went in one event, and then a second event, I need even much more now, and the time is gone. Wait, Noah, what do you want to ask?
Well, I kind of just want to recap to make sure I'm understanding correctly because the Darkei Moshe, right, disagreed with the Beit Yosef's understanding of the machloket between the smag and the tur. So if I'm just understanding correctly, these terutzim are different ways of understanding that machloket. So,
Yeah, yes. There are two different ways of explaining why the sorry, why the tour thinks that you don't ever have to do a hakira, having nothing to do with Hanan, or having maybe something to do with Hanan, but basically saying that Hanan is out of the picture. Why is Hanan out of the picture? Either because you can assume that it was Shogeg, or Hanan is out of the picture because um, you can because we're making ukimta. We're only talking about a case where lo noda tarovet, and we're making it ukimta. We're limiting the case that he's talking about. He's saying
meaning
where he didn't know about the tarovet and it happened, then there was no Hanan, and that also makes sense. I think he's going to explain because once he knows about it, he'll come to the rabbi. So how could it be a case that he knows about the tarovet and then he added water? If once he knows about it, he'll come and ask. So if he's coming to ask, we can assume that there was only one discrete event. There was only the final noda. There was no intermitting. There was no dividing. There was no other knowledge that happened in the middle and before he came. Unless you want to say he decided to go to the rabbi, and on the way to the rabbi, the woman upstairs dumped a bucket of water on him, and it fell into the soup. I mean, we're assuming that that's not what happened. We're assuming that once he knew, he came. Therefore, therefore the akimta is not such a bad akimta to say that there was no noda b'tayim. There was no knowledge, because if it was knowledge, he would have come to us. That was a lot of words. Ori?
I just want to bring that back to the Hakira question, right? So in the smog. So in the smog, Hanan is more of a physical reality that it doesn't matter. Like you want to ask that person, by the way, did you pour the water after you already knew about the Isser?
Because it's just a
Why the
physical
Hakira,
reality.
I guess is my question. He holds Hanan could
Oh,
override
you're asking now
the
what
Shogeg?
is the yeah. In other words, we've just been explaining the tour. You're saying
Yeah.
what does the Sefer HaMitzvah hold? He holds. It's a good question. He holds that. Well, there's a lot of things you could say. You could say maybe he holds that that maybe there was a Deah in the middle. In other words, he wants you to ask. He wants you to ask. Did you know about it? Did you do a b'shogeg? He's just worried.
Right, right.
He's just worried about all those possibilities. Whereas the tour is saying those are unlikely eventualities, which we don't have to worry about. This gets into a very big question, which is
Or he
achzuke
holds different
isura
Hanan.
lo machzikinan. There's a case in the Gemara with Dam Nida, where if it's one color when it's wet and it turns to a different color when it's dry, then when it's dry, it would be forbidding. But if the cloth comes to you when it's wet and the color is a permitted color, then you don't have to wait around and see what color it changes to when it dries. Because we don't investigate. What we see is before us is what we have. So we assume that it's not going to change color. So to here, we can assume that there was a normal case that he came to us when he found out about it. But the tour, but the Sefer Mitzvah says, no, I don't know about that. Maybe he really did come after he knew about it. Maybe the water came after he knew about it.
So the Hakira is, did you do it b'mezid? Basically. Did you
did you
purposely
do it
add water?
b'mezid?
You have to ask,
or did you do it b'shogeg after it was noda?
Well, in this reading, it's the same, right? That's a type
Same
of
din.
mezid.
No, the same din. But you might ask, in the second reading, you'd ask him, when you put the liquid in b'shogeg, did you already know that it had that the Isser had fallen in?
But I thought we're basically eliminating that as a true shogeg.
No, that's a shogeg.
Which kind of shogeg do you mean? Like the water fell in by accident?
Yeah.
Sort of slapsticky. Like not as realistic.
Yeah. It fell in. Maybe the water fell in after you knew about it. Those are the hakirot that the Sefer Mitzvah wants you to do. And the Torah says, no. We don't lo machzikin isura. We don't worry about isurim when we have no bloody knife. You don't worry that there was a murder if you don't see a bloody knife. You need some kind of indication that something happened bad. You don't just start imagining things and then doing hakiras about it.
Sure. Plus, migo makes sense there too, like that kind of idea. They could have just
right. Okay, wait. Let's just finish up this Darkei Moshe because he has more interesting things to say. V'zeh teretz Nachum, and then go from there.
Do you want me to do this now? Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. V'chein kasav b'isr v'hetzer ha'aroch klal lamed zayin had mitztaref im rabba b'shogeg hainu im lo noda b'intayim v'im noda b'intayim eino mitztaref. So that's nice proof or support. U'lechein tzarich hacham lachkor acharav ad kan l'shono.
So basically saying exactly what he just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the Isra v'hetzer
someone else says it. Yeah.
Right. Ve'ein lakshov.
Ve'ein lakshos lefi devarai de'im kain lama kasav rabbeinu de'ein tzarich lishol halo tzarich lishol shema noda b'intayim da'az lo mahani mashnis rabba.
Right. Maybe you should ask. Maybe it was added after he knew about it.
Right.
V'yesh lo imar.
Yesh lo mar desvirle dilaha lo chayshinan. The mistama ilu hayano noda b'intayim miyadei abal chacham lishol madino. This is what you were saying a second ago.
Right. In other words, you're not going to worry that he added it. As soon as he knew about it, he came. So there's no reason to assume there was two knowledge that he knew about it and then he added water by accident. Okay.
Right.
V'aroch
shekasav demitam ze tzrichin lishol pasak kesmag shetzarich lishol kedei letaretz divrei hasmag shelo yiksha alav haydekay malan kol harisurin shnisrabu shogeg mutzarin lachein chilek bein noda b'intayim velo noda uvzeh meturatzim divrei sefer mitzvos below tirutzo shel Beis Yosef.
Okay, we don't have to explain that too detailed, but basically he's saying I don't need the teruts of the Beit Yosef that it deals with Hanan. It just deals with Noda, not Noda. Yeah. Okay, but go on.
The od nireh de'afshar de'hator mechalek bein hada amrin and chasicha nases nevela lahada amrin and kol yisurin sheriba lehem b'shogeg mutter kamo shemechalek b'tshuvas harashba siman tav tzadi hey shekasav davka im nisarev lach belach o yavesh b'yavesh amrinan di'imri ba'alehem shogeg. Aval kol she'asur mishum balua kagon iser shenafal al hachasicha v'yishba b'nosein tam ve'achar kach nisraba heter levatel einu mo'il de'amrinan chanan ve'afshar lesochato asur ad kan l'shona.
Okay, so he says like this. He says, first of all, you should understand that there are some people that say there's no Hanan in Lach B'Lach or Yavish B'Yavish in general. That's just like a kind of concept, a halachic opinion, that there's no Hanan in Yavish B'Yavish and Lach B'Lach. When is there Hanan? Only basically by a tipa of something that falls onto a piece of meat. So you could say that the din of imriba alehem b'shogeg mutar is only in those cases of where we don't say chanan, or where some people don't say chanan. In other words, we actually paskin that you do say chanan there in lach b'lach and yavish b'yavish. But maybe if in combination with the fact that there's some people who say you don't, and you did it b'shogeg, then maybe we don't say chanan. Questions? Is that good? A little bit complicated.
Why do we need this answer? Why is he going further on the tour?
That's a good question. I think he's going to reject this opinion, but it's a good question. Why does he think that? Why he's just giving another possibility? He doesn't really know. I guess he doesn't know. Before he said this is the terrorist of Nachum.
I think he's going to bring both in the Mapa, right?
Well, first of all, the Rashba brings it. He says it could be that the Rashba is right. He's just quoting the Rashba. First, he was quoting the Isser Heter Ha'aro, and now he's giving the teretz that the Rashba gives. And the Rashba says that the klal of riba lehem shogeg mutar is only by lach b'lach and yavish b'yavish, but not by tipa in peace. Okay, continue.
Yeah. V'chein haya nireh li leishev divrei haTorah dekasav stam dekaimelan kol isurin shriba lem shogeg mutarin mashma af bivsar v'chalav delukulei alma chanan gam ki lo ra'isi mirabosai miyamai sheshalu achar chakira zo af agav da'anu noagin b'chol isurin chanan.
So he says like this. This is a very important point here. He says he never saw anybody do this hakira. So it must be that there's a reason that they don't do the hakira. So it must be like he just explained. You don't need to do it. And he never even saw them do it by Basar B'chalav, where for sure we have Chanan. Now, according to the first part, where he said that according to the Beis Yosef, you should do it by Basar B'chalav. But he never saw any rabbi ever do it. Now, this is an important principle, which is that, you can't make a lag, you can't, put in ill repute the previous generation. You can't say the previous generation just didn't think about it, didn't know the halacha. We have to say that the previous generation knew what they were doing. So we have to give it. So it must be that they held like what he's saying, and not like the Shulchan Aruch, not like the Beis Yosef. Okay.
Right. Omnam b'hagahas sharidura matzati b'shem Maharia zal davke b'davar yavesh yesh linhog hachi di'im nisraba heter mutar avalo b'davar lach dekaimalan chanan ad kan lashono. So I saw something in the name. I think this is the Trumas Adeshen, that when we only do the chakira with davar yavesh.
No,
no,
the other way around.
The other way. We only don't do the chakira in Yavesh. But in Lach, when we have Chanan, then we do need to do the chakira.
Right. Mashma.
Umashma dekol makom de'amrinan Chanan tzrichin lachkor achar chakira zo v'hu kedat Beis Yosef.
Oh, so he says the Trumas Adeshen agrees with Beis Yosef. We're going back now and saying, actually, you do need to do this chakira whenever you have Kanan. Okay, so go on. V'tema
delo nihigi lachkor b'davar zeh, but I just said that I've never seen this. V'tzarich lomar da'af al gav demachmirim im noda shenisraba heter mikol makom lo machmirin lachkor achar zos v'yen le'el siman tzadi beis be'eza davar miran chanan. So it must be the case that even though that actually this noda bein time is a chumrah.
Wait, noda bet time is a kula. No, what do you mean it's a kula? In other words, it's zero.
Oh, that were.
I think what he's saying is actually, like the Beis Yosef said, you need to do this chakira.
Right.
But we just don't do it. because we assume that it didn't happen. But logically, he's right. In other words, he's going back on everything. I think he's going back on everything he said and saying in Basar B'chalav and in other things, there could really be an issue that the water added later, and there was Hanan, and therefore it's what we see in front of us is not the reality. But I never saw anybody do a hakira like this, so it must be we're not choshesh that this happened at all. Not that we're not choshesh that he did it b'shogeg, that he did it b'mezid or something. We're not choshesh at all. Questions? No, Joel, what do you say?
Oh, sorry, Reuven has hand. I'll see.
Reuven, what do you say?
Thank you. This is just a small point, but so why he says machmirim? I don't understand. But there's no chumrah here.
Afagav de machmirin im noda itarev heter. Even though, if we, what does it mean im nodash itarev heter? Even though you're saying, in other words, really, this idea of Yediyah and not Yediyah does count, but we're going to pretend we're im noda tarovet.
Oh no. I don't think this is no dabbing time here. I think this is if we knew that they did add water onto the thing, then we'd be machmir. But we're not machmir. Right. But we're not machmir to go investigate that did they do it or not, right? That's the if
in other words, even though my svaras made sense, but really we don't follow them when we're machmir to say that if we would actually know that there was a isser added, there was heter added later, it would really be usser. But we're gonna not even ask him. And this is something that I've noticed when I've asked questions to rabbis in the past. They just go by whatever I say. Whatever information it sounded like a doctor. If you go to a doctor and you say, whatever information you give, he gives you a diagnosis based on that. He doesn't start saying, but does the pain go away when you lie down? You have to give him the information. He's not going to try to put words into your mouth. Whatever you say is the reality that he paskins by. And it's the same thing here. If you tell us this case, which is kind of annoying because, you tell them I cooked something in my oven, blah, blah, blah. And then in the tray, he says he can't kasher the tray, whatever he says, but maybe it was a glass tray. He didn't ask you, maybe it was something else. Joel says, I need a better doctor. Probably. I have the doctor from Silicon Valley. Josie.
So it seems like the Ramah has come full circle, and now he's back to the position of the Torah, which is basically migo. Like, we're just going to take what's in front of us, and anything you say about it, we're just going to accept it at face value with where we are. We're not going to go any further with that. The Hakira is just going to be, tell me what happened, and what is this, and not did you explain. See, just tell me what it is,
and not ask. Right? Yes.
Like this happened. Well, then it's kosher, or then it's not kosher.
But Hanan is real. Where he's leaving it.
Yeah, it comes out then that Hanan is real after all those explanations.
Hanan is real, not even unobserved Hanan could be real.
Yes.
But we still don't ask.
Again, the answer is you have to say it's a machloket. I mean, according to the Rashba and the Isser V'Heter, it's not real. It's not what you call real. It's not. It depends on Yediyah. But according to the Trumat Hadeshin, it really is pure reality. There's a machloket, but he's saying apparently
unobserved reality would be a better term.
Yeah,
Hanan could be an unobserved reality.
Okay,
or an unintended reality.
Hanan happens whether you observe it or not. Right? That's according to one opinion, but not according to the Rashba, not according to what the Darkei Moshe really believes, I think, and not according to the Isser V'Heter. But according to the Beit Yosef, and the Trumas Adeshin, it seems that it is a reality.
But
All right.
everyone agrees you don't ask for different reasons.
But everybody agrees exactly. But everybody agrees you don't ask for different reasons, which is what Rashi said all along in the Gemara that we saw a month ago. Right? The Iker is what Shabbat Lefaneinu, whatever the reality may be.
So I have another question. When you say Hanan is reality or isn't, does that mean like if we don't know, we don't observe, we don't check, and we end up serving food, and now we've just served our company tray, for example. And I'm thinking about this in sort of like a practical rabbinics type of view and not just a theoretical type of thing. But some milk fell in my chicken soup, right? And now I'm serving my chicken soup, and it was, a quart of milk in my 5 quarts of chicken soup, and now I've got very cloudy chicken soup, or it's
Oh,
I
wait,
don't
wait,
know what.
wait. I think you're differentiating. Is it? No, no, no. It's not that. You see, we're talking about when does Hanan happen, not whether there's Isser here. I mean, if you had 60 versus the milk, or you didn't have, did you have 60? I don't know what's your case. Your case is there isn't 60 against the milk? Well, there isn't 60 against the milk, then it's for sure treif. And if there is 60 against the milk, then it depends. That means the milk is not tasted. Nobody notices any milk. It's not tasted. And now you're just asking, did we eat treif? Well, if we're not, maybe we ate treif if you knew that if somebody added water after the milk got in, and the reason and it was actually not enough to mavata the milk the first time it came in. When the milk first came in, there was only 40 against it, and only now there's 60, and it's not tasted, but it doesn't matter. It's Hanan. So
Didn't
I
we
would
say
say,
earlier that but by Chalav, ta'am isn't an issue, right? That's
what?
what Rav Joel just said that about 10 minutes ago. By the Isser of Basar Chalav isn't a ta'am based Isser,
No, Hanan.
right?
No, Basar B'chalav is about Tom. Hanan is not about Tom.
Okay, I'm
No,
sorry.
if I don't taste the milk in the meat, then it's batel. If I do taste it, then it's not batel. The only question is if I don't taste it, but a Hanan happened earlier, then, and I still don't taste it now, then maybe if I knew about it, then it would be usher. But if I didn't know about it, then it would be mutter. But you're never going to say a case where you notice the cloudiness of the milk in this chicken soup, then for sure it's usher.
But
No matter
the
what,
Torah,
no matter whether you know about it or not, whether you knew the milk fell in or you don't know the milk fell in. It's not Hanan, it's just treif. Yeah, Ori.
well, there's also the case of the Torah's shogeg where we, at the end of the day, we do know because it's, chakira or no chakira. If I come and I say I accidentally added water after, he actually says that's also allowed, even though I added the water after. Right?
If I
Well,
didn't know
if in
about it,
the end
and
we
if I didn't
know,
know about it and I did it by accident, or whatever, if I didn't
I
know
didn't
about it,
know
then
when I
I
added
always
the
did it by accident.
water,
If I didn't know about it and I added it, then it's mutter. Yeah. That's
even
what he
though we
said. But
know
in the end,
now.
he says, no, but in
Now
the
we
end, he says
know.
it doesn't matter.
That's what I'm saying. According to the Torah, now we know because we didn't know in the interim, right? But now we have Noda, obviously, because I'm coming and talking to you, and it is allowed. So this is the machoket, right? Because this is definitely Hanan. At the end of the day, in the Shogeg case, not the Hakira case. The Hakira case, fine, but
I don't quite follow you.
okay, this is the case. It's like what the Torah says in the end of the Torah. I didn't have 60 against what fell in. So in a physical level, it should have been Hanan. I added enough water afterwards, b'shogeg, to
And I
make it
didn't
now
know about it. Did I
60.
know about it or I didn't know about it?
Yeah, this is a shogeg. I added the water. I didn't realize I had a tarovet. Now I realize after I poured the water that I had a tarovet.
So according to the final explanation in the Darkei Moshe, if I know all these events transpired, then I can't eat it.
But according to the Torah, for
But I
sure, I
don't
can't.
have to
That's
do
the
a
Torah's cloud.
hakira. But I don't have to do a hakira to see if these events transpired in this way.
Right. But the Torah, I'm saying, is like the Rashba. This is the cloud. Isn't the cloud that I added at b'shogeg that it is enough now to cancel the Isser, even though it's not enough to cancel the Hanan Isser, right? I don't have to do new math. I'm gonna have 60 against the original Isser because I added the water shogeg.
You're saying as opposed to
The
the
Seif.
Sefer Mitzvos, which says you have to do a Hakira, the Tur says you don't have to do a Hakira
No,
because
forget the
Shogeg
Fakir.
call Isurim Sheriba Lehen Shogeg Mutarin. And you did it b'Shogeg.
Yeah, for Hakir or no Hakir, I'm saying in the normal case where I'm talking to the rabbi afterwards, and it was a shogeg when I poured the water. That's a normal case of
And
shogeg.
you're talking according to the Tur,
Yeah, the Torah is
not
very
according to
clear.
the
Kol
Sefer
Yisrael Sheri
Mitzvos.
Batnein Shogeg Mutarim.
Yeah, okay.
There is such a thing as adding it b'shogeg and finding it after. So that still is going to feel like it's going against a physical view of Hanan or I don't know, objective view of Hanan, right? We override Hanan in the shogeg case, at least in the Torah.
Again, unless you say make a ukimta that we're talking about where it's lo noda, and then there was no Hanan in the first place.
But you can't describe that case. There's a noda. It's just not in the interim
Again,
when I poured it. I'm saying I didn't know when I poured in the water that I was pouring water into it. That's the case of Kol Yisrin Sheri Baleim Shogeg.
all
That's
right.
my
We
shogeg.
better talk about this after class because I don't think everybody's following you, and
I think
it's
this is like the basics. Okay, I'll ask her, Joe.
I'm not sure what you're asking. You're asking
Well,
what the
I'm saying
opinion of the Tur is about a case of, and you're asking whether it is a case of viewing Hanan as a not talui, the thing that is not dependent upon my knowledge. I don't know. I lost you. I lost you. Maybe somebody else wants to
I
answer.
just I'm just saying I'm reading the Torah simply. The Torah is saying in a normal case of shogeg, which means I didn't know when I poured the water in that I was pouring it into a taroves. Now I know after I poured it, right? Because we're telling you it's mutar, and you're asking about shogeg hypothetically, right? Otherwise, it's not saying anything at all, that rule. If I never knew, then it's not shogeg, it's just never known. I don't mean to be abstract. I'm just saying that's the Torah's opinion about shogeg, and that means that in essence you've overridden Hanan, at least in some cases. Unless I guess maybe that's
Again, I can
exactly
only
what you're
say the
saying.
same thing that I said before, assuming that Hanan is independent of knowledge. But maybe we can make
Yeah.
an ukimta in the tour and say he's talking about a case where you didn't know when you did the shogeg, and therefore there was never really Hanan here. And we're not overriding Hanan, but we just never was Hanan here because I added it before I knew that there was a
Yeah,
event.
but that wouldn't be good for those who say Hanan is going to happen either way, like in the Truma Hadeshin. It's machloket.
Yeah, yes, but I think that Truman's edition was going according to Sefer Mitzvah. I don't think he
Right.
was
Okay.
explaining the tour.
Well, the other option is that the tour is talking about a case that's non-Hanan, right? Like
Also a possibility. We saw that as an answer. Yes, that
yeah,
the tour
okay.
is talking about a case where Hanan doesn't occur when it's B'shogeg, because anyway, there's some people who say that by Lach there's no Hanan.
Right.
So you're right that it's a case where there was no Hanan, according to him,
It's
but the question is, why was there no Hanan? It could be because Hanan doesn't get started, not necessarily because Hanan is overridden. That was the first terrace that
yes.
Darkei Moshe gave. That Hanan occurs, but it's overridden by the cloud of Kol Shemar, Kol Yisur Riba Lehen Shogeg Mutarin, even if there's Hanan. That was the first answer that the Darkei Moshe gave, but then he gave other
Yeah.
answers.
Right. The Va'od part is basically saying it's possible this tour is not talking about a case where it would be Hanan at all, which is just other types of cases.
True, true. All right, let's take a break here. We'll come back after the break. Okay, so if I could just summarize two things, I think. Tell me if anyone wants to add, but I think basically we learned two things that first of all, two side issues. that first of all, there are some isurim that we don't. Sorry, that by lach balach and by yavish yavish, it could be that in certain cases we don't say chanan. That's one interesting thing we saw. That there's an opinion that just by yavish and lach do we say chanan. And the other thing that we saw is that chanan might depend on might be overridden by this idea of shogeg kosher riba shogeg mutar, and it might be over, and it also might not occur Hanan until we actually know about it. And we saw that there are various Rishonim that hold like that. Okay, now we have a different topic, which is the topic is um, well, it's in the Beit Yosef here. Mashakativ Rabbeinu to Kaimelan Kol Isur Riba Alehen. The question is, are we gozer shogeg atu mezi? This is the next question. Gozer shogeg atu mezi. We made a distinction here, and we said if he did it b'shogeg, if he added b'shogeg, then it'd be butter. He did it b'mezi, it'd be usher. But there are various places in the Gemara where it says things that are done b'shogeg are treated like mezi. Okay? So, because we are gozer, we make a rabbinic gezerah, because if we start letting people do it b'shogeg, then they'll say, or they'll say they did it b'shogeg when it's really b'mezid, or for whatever reasons, we might want to be gozer. So here, let's look at this Beit Yosef. Masha katuv Rabbeinu de kaimelan kol isurim sheriba alei and shogeg mutarin b'mezid asurin. Here, maybe Eitan, you want to read?
Sure. Mashakatav Rabbeinu de Kaimelan de Kol Yisarin Shariba Leam Shogeg Mutarin B'mezid Asurin. The Samochit Be'er de Halacha Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Shimon de Amre Hachi.
Okay, so wait a second. So on the maybe I'll share my screen a second. In the source sheet, I gave you what is this machloket he's talking about. Let me just find the source sheet. Here it is. Share. Yeah. Here. So you can see this document, everybody? Yeah. Here. It's this one here, number 7. And I added a little line here. Haim gazru shogagatu mezid b'derabanan. Did we, in a case of derabanan iser, do we gozer shogagatu mezid? Do we say that shogeg is forbidden just like mezid is? So in the page before this, it's written that Rabbi. Well, that's not important. Fine. So here he says like this. Wait, is this the right one? Yeah, this is the right one. Rami de Rabbi Yehuda ada Rabbi Yehuda b'derabanan. Titania naflu v'nit patsu. This is talking about like forbidden nuts, like walnuts. Echad shogeg echad mezid lo yalu divrei Rabbi Meir v'Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda says we are gozer because it doesn't matter whether shogeg or mezid. These are not batel because if they hadn't broken, then they would have been aser. And the fact they broken, echad shogeg echad mezid lo yalu. It's not going to be mutter. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon omrim b'shogeg yalu, b'mezid lo yalu. So Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say you don't go there. Shogeg atu mezid in this case of devar chashuv. Okay, that's the Gemara. So now b'samach yitba'er the halacha ke Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon who were lenient. The amri hachi, the b'shogeg mutar, right? They're the ones that hold that shogeg is mutar. And we don't go there. Okay, read on. So here, read on, Eitan.
Uva Siman Kuf Yud, Katav Rabbeinu, the Davar she'eino batel mechamat chashivuto, shenit'arev be'acherim, v'nafal echad mehem layam hamelach, hutru kulam. Upiresh ri davka nafla. Aval im hipila afilu shogeg asur atu mezid. Behem divrei hatosfot be Rabbeinu Pered.
No, Rosh Perek.
Rosh Perek.
Rosh Perek HaTarovot. The
Right.
beginning of the chapter called Tarovot.
Harovot. V'divrei Rosh b'tshuva.
So explain, we go back.
So in Siman Kuf Yud, the Torah wrote that something that is not canceled, that cannot be batel because it is because of its chashivutok.
So we're going to learn this siman later, which is that it's called davar chashuv. A davar chashuv is not batel. In other words, if it's, and that's a rabbinic law. Normally it should be batel, but if it's a very important thing, like a nice piece of meat, maybe it's not going to be batel, even though we normally would say meat, echad b'trei is batel, 1 and 2 is batel. As long as you have majority kosher pieces, then it would be mutter. But if the pieces are actually nice steaks, then they're devar chashuv. Then even though you have only 1 iser and 2 heter, it'll be aser. The whole tarovet, because it's not batel because of its chashivuto. But what if nafal echad mehem liyam hamelach? But what if you had those 3 pieces, and one of them fell into the Dead Sea? So now I only have 2 pieces. And maybe the one that fell into the Dead Sea is the Isser. So Hutra Kulam. So then they're mutter. Now go on. Perishri.
Pirashri davka nafla aval im hipila afilu shogeg asur.
Oh, so wait a second. Asur atumezid. So here you see that we are gozer shogeg atumezid. In what case?
I guess if you purposefully remove it.
No, hepilu b'shogeg. What does that mean?
Oh, sorry. If you took it out non-purposefully. Sorry.
Well, you have to think about this. Hepilu is not naflu, which means it fell of its own accord. Hepilu means you threw it into the Dead Sea, but somehow you did it b'shogeg. Maybe you were skipping stones and you thought this piece of meat was.
Why are you saying hipila is you threw it as opposed to you made it fall somehow? Perhaps you knocked it over.
You dropped it
fell off a cliff.
Oh, okay. I take
I think it's much easier to knock something over or whatever.
In other words, you knocked it over. You're in your airplane flying over Yam HaMelach, and it fell out the window, but you knocked it out the window by mistake, and it fell into Yam HaMelach. Or you were on a cliff over the Yam HaMelach, and you knocked it over, and it fell into the. But you hepilu, as opposed to the first case of nafla. If it fell on its own accord, then it's mutter. But if you threw it, even though you did it b'shogeg, it's aser atumezid. So you see that we are paskening aser atumezid. Shogeg aser atumezid. Go ahead. Vehem divrei Tosfot. You read this. These are the words of the Tosfos. Rosh Perek HaTarovot. This is the Tosfos opinion, and also the divrei Rosh. All right, go on. Venire.
Venire shehem. Venire shehem silvrim k'Rebbi Meir v'Rebbi Yehuda dekanse shogeg atumezid.
Right. So, like in our Gemara that we saw, they're like Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, not like Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. No, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. So which is it? We pass it like goes there or not goes there? Which way do we pass it? Why is it that by these pieces, if the Bar Chashuv, you throw one into the sea, then it's mutter. I mean, then it's not mutter, even though you did it by accident. But but in our case, we don't go to shogeg to mezid. It matters all the difference in the world if you added water b'shogeg or mezid. Okay, go ahead.
Vehu tema lama pasku kamotam neged Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Shimon וגם על רבנו יש לתמוה, למה כתב כאן דקיימלן דשוגג מותר.
Bisham katav
שם כתב, not sure,
perish re.
הפרש רי, ואפילו הפילה שוגג אסור.
In other words, there he said that the re holds that if you did it b'shogeg, it's asur. The lo katav shum cholik alav, and he didn't give the other side. In other words, it sounds like he adopted the re's opinion over there, and here he didn't adopt the re's opinion. Go ahead, va'od.
ועוד, דאם כן לא הווה למימר דקיימלן, כיוון דרי פלג בי.
And over here, he shouldn't have said that we are the kaimalan. If you notice in the tour, it says the kaimalan kol isurin sheriba aleim shogeg mutarin b'mezid asuri. That's not everybody's opinion. The kaimalan. That's one opinion. It's not the Tosas opinion, and in fact, even Paskin Tosas opinion. So he's contradicting himself. Go ahead.
ועוד, דאי הכי לא קשיא לסמג מידי. דאי גלמימר כרי סביר עלי, דקניס שוגג אטו מזיד.
Okay, this is a bit hard. Can you figure that one out?
And furthermore, if that's the case, then this wouldn't be a problem. He wouldn't have an issue with the smog at all, because he could just say that the smog just holds like the re, who's just making a fine or just sort of penalizing, like maybe
Penalizing shogu atumesi. And therefore what? And therefore what does he say? What is the
So that's why he wouldn't. That's why the smog doesn't differentiate between the shogeg and the mazid, and so he just holds always like
right? Because remember, the smog said that it's usser, that if you that you have to do this hakira because if you added it afterward, it's usser. If you added the water afterward, it's usser. And the tour says mapitom, if you did it b'shogeg, it'd be mutter. But then he could say what he means. That's exactly the opinion of the smog. The smog is that shogeg doesn't make a difference. Don't tell me if you did it with shogeg, it's mutter. That's the whole point. The smog holds like three. That if you did it with shogeg, where goes the shogeg got to mazid. So if mazid is usher, then shogeg is also usher.
The smog is very much like a manual, not necessarily a book of lumdus. So it's enough for people to know that it's usher.
Right. He didn't have to give an explanation. Thank you. All right, go on. Veshema.
ושמא יש לומר, יש חילוק בין מבטל איסור למפיל אחת מהן לים, דאף אגב דמבטל לא קנסינן שוגג, במפיל קנסינן. And maybe you would say that there's a difference between, or you could differentiate between making, being bitul and isur for someone who purposefully, or sorry, not purposely, but who causes it to go out, causes the thing to leave the mixture, even though we're not actually.
Wait. What is mevabein mevatel isur, which is what? Which is mutar asur?
It's mutar.
Mutar. Mevatel isur is mutar. Lemapil achat mehen liyam, which is asur. Why? We can make a differentiation between them. Maybe he doesn't expect to explain. Da'afal gab de mevatel lo kansina, and shogeg. And even though here, by a case of mevatel, adding water, we don't call this. B'mapil, when you throw one into the sea, we do. And he doesn't explain why there's a difference. But he says, maybe there's a difference. You understand? He says, maybe it's not a whole bunch of such of a big stira. Maybe they're intrinsically different. Something different about throwing something into the sea and adding water to your tarovet. And that in adding water, we're not going to be worried. We're not going to be gozer, shogeg atu mezid. But in throwing to the sea, we will. Now, if you want to see, I could ask you what's the svara, but if we can see what the svara is. And who's going to tell us the svara? Your next item on your study guide, which is but
Rashi?
the no, not maybe not the next item, but the Bach. Maybe Shira, you want to read the Bach where it says Hiksha Beit Yosef.
Here, let me just pull it up. I don't have the source sheet, so let me just
You don't need the source sheet.
get that.
It just says there. I don't actually print it in the source sheet. I just tell you where to go. So I'm telling you, Hiksha Beit Yosef Meha de Kaimalan Shogeg Mutar.
It's the last paragraph of number 6.
Great. Okay, I found it.
Everyone else found it? No, Ori, you didn't find it? It's in a little bit dark letters in my print. Here it says Hiksha. I have to turn by me, I have to turn the page. And then it says Hiksha. Got it. Okay. So go ahead, Shira.
Okay. Hikshavit Yosef mehad kaimalon b'shogeg mutarin b'mezid asurin dahainu k'Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbi Shimon deperak haniskin uvasiman kofyed katav Rabbeinu al shem per
Hashem
perushri
Perushri.
al shem perushri dafka nafla aval hipila afilu shogeg asur atu mezid v'hainu k'Rabbi Meir v'Rabbi Yehuda Tefligi Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so
Well, that's
so
just
the Beit
all a quote of
Yosef,
he's basically just quoting everything that Beit Yosef said.
yeah, right. So it's this question of who we are, right? Who we're following from the Gemara, in terms of the Re's distinction with throwing versus
Right.
falling of its own accord.
Right. Throwing
Okay.
shogeg. Or not throwing, that's what I said,
Yes.
but I took Isaac's correction and I said maybe knocking it over, but doing an action that causes by shogeg, doing a shogeg action that gets the piece into the Dead Sea somehow. And as opposed to it just falling of its own accord, which everybody agrees is a different case. It's like that's a different case, but that's not shogeg. That's just miracles. I don't know. That's just events.
Wait, so
Shogeg is where
is this distinguishing sort of further like splitting hairs in terms of like before we had like mitkavein of like it was intentional but without the knowledge, and here it's saying within the category of not even intentional you have like something that happened with your own hand kind of accidentally versus like
versus something. Right. We kind of have three levels. We have a level of it happening. You did it, it just happens. Then it happens by you doing it by accident. You knocked it over with your elbow. Or you intentionally did it. And everybody agrees that if it happened by itself, that's mutter. Let's say everybody agrees. But what about if you knocked it over, is that shogeg going to be usher because it's similar to doing intentionally because you had some involvement in it? That's gozer shogeg atu mezi.
okay.
V'yesh lomar.
Let's finish up the
This is still quoting the Beit Yosef.
So yeah. L'shema yesh lomar dish chiluk bein mevatel isor lemapil echad mehen liam. Daf al gav de mevatel lo kansinan shogeg b'mapil.
And therefore it's mutter. And therefore the tarovet is mutter.
Right.
But
with
but shogeg b'mapil lo kansinan shogeg b'mapil kansinan ad kan l'shon Beit Yosef. In other words, so he didn't explain it. Now the Bach is sort of unusual that the Bach explains and so nicely the Beit Yosef. A lot of times he argues with the Beit Yosef. Here he's just sort of explaining the Beit Yosef. So go ahead. The Ratzono Lamar.
Ratzono Lamar de benafal Detalinan lememar ha'isor ne'evad min ha'olam, yavo lahakel, ulahipilo, ulitlot, vilomar demistama ha'isor hu denafal. Okay, so in the case of, or I think what the Beit Yosef means to say is that in the case of nafal, right, where it's just sort of fully without anyone's involvement, that we can kind of make these assumptions, right, and say that like it's as though the Isor is like gone from the world as like an active God.
In other words, the one that went into the sea is one of the pieces. Which
Yeah.
one is it? We'll say that the one that's called Nevad Min Olam. It went into the sea. So we'll say it's the Isser. We have to choose. We have to assume it's somebody. So we'll assume it's the Isser, and then everything else is mutter now.
Right. And so in that case, we can be Mekil. And
No, Yavo Lahakel. He'll come to be lenient with himself.
Oh, great. Sorry. He will come to be lenient and to then purpose, but to in a case of hipil,
And he'll ulahapilo. And
right, like
he'll
in a
throw
case
it
of
in
when he will
himself
actually
with
do
his
that.
hands.
Well, so now it's interesting because I feel like now it's saying it in the sense of like more intentional.
The truth is, it seems after we just made that distinction of the three levels,
Yeah.
it seems that the Bach is not really noticing so much the three levels.
Yeah.
He's mostly talking about the difference between hipil b'shogeg and hipil b'mezi. And that he's really just talking about those two cases. Joel, you want to make a
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's talking about, right?
yeah.
Once I know this rule that if I accidentally kicked it, as if Isaac put it, and it's mutar. Well, I'm just gonna, every time I have this case of like chashivut, which is not batel derabanan, how am I get myself out of the case? I'm just gonna take one of them and throw them away, right?
Yeah, in other words, he's just like right, exactly. So he's distinguishing between hipil intentionally and hipil b'shogeg. And he's saying, since if he's mapil meshogeg, or if he's mapil, if it fell by accident, in other words, why is it that we're not going to let him even in his mapil b'shogeg? Because then he'll come to appeal intentionally, to throw it in intentionally.
Right.
V'litlot lomar demistabra ha'isur hu denafal. He'll say the same thing. He'll say, I threw it in, and which one did I throw in? Probably the Isser one.
I think it's more than just they'll come to do it because of our allowing it. I think it's saying like it's like wishful thinking. I know I have a treif steak here, and I'm gonna want to throw that treif steak away, and I'm gonna want to believe I threw the treif one. You see what I'm saying? Because it's really gone, so I can feel like I got rid of the treif.
Yeah, right, exactly. Wait,
Well,
he's gonna let him say the words, and then you can say
that. Okay. Great. So we're gonna say, right, he's going to want to be tola on, say like, oh, fine, like so too here, it's the Isser one that fell. Aval b'mevatel shaha'isur nishar sham lo chayshinan she'avo levatlo b'mezid. Right. However, in a case of bitul, right, where it's not the case that the Isor is like gone into the sea, right? It's still in
my pot.
It's still in the pot. Right. We're not worried that is going to lead someone to then do it.
Then to add water mivata. In other words, when you can reasonably assume that the one, or potentially assume that the one went away, you sort of, you lost that piece. It's gone. So maybe that's the Isser one. But when you're still eating everything that was Isser before, you're still eating it. You just added some water and now you're going to eat it. People won't do that. It's a kind of psychological perspective on people that people, if they can reasonably say that the one I'm eating is not Isser, then they know there's a din that if one falls into the sea, then it's all mutter. So I'll just make one fall into the sea, and then I'm not eating anything else. But to add liquid, people wouldn't do because that would mean that they're still actually eating the isser. They can't make any presumptions that the isser is gone. It's right there in the pot.
Okay. All right, and we say so mishum hachi benaflu v'nitpatzu sheha isor nishar sham lo chayshinan v'lo kansinan shogeg atumezin. Right, so in that, right, that's why in the case of when the nuts, whatever the case from the Gemara where they fell in, and again, this is a case where they're still in the mixture, right? That we are not going to sort of to punish Shogeg case because of Mazid, because we're not worried it's going to be like this slippery slope.
Right.
Okay. Ve'od yesh lamar de b'mevatel de asur min haTorah levatel b'mezid kmo shekatav harashba al shem harayved de midehitera haTorah bizroa b'shela levatel ha'isor lechatchila V'karinan le chidush miklal debechol haTorah asur levatel ayin alav beit revi'i shar shlishi. Great. V'chein v'kach katav Haran mishmo u'mishem Haram bam v'perik gimel
Yida Nasha.
Yida Nasha. Ein lahachziko be Russia.
Yeah. Don't make people into Rush. Don't think that people are Rashayim.
Levatel v'mezid la'avor isur de'oraita v'lo kansu shogeg atu mezid. Actually, I should probably pause.
Yeah, you read a lot.
Yeah, I read a lot. Okay. Okay, so we have this furthermore, when we are talking about nullifying something which is asur de'oraita.
No, a little bit different.
Sorry, that it is asur, like that it is asur de'oraita to do it. Sorry.
Yes. So this is an important point. There's like we're learning another issue here, which is that to mavat, there's one thing if you mavatel an isser, can you eat it? Can you not eat it? But what about the actual act of doing the mevatel? Is that permitted? And he's saying that it's asur. The Ravid says, and I think also the Rambam says that it's asur deraita. In other words, the isser you're not allowed to mevatel an isser. The Torah says do not mevatel an isser. It's an isser from the Torah, so the person wouldn't do that. The asur min Torah levatel b'mezid k'mo shekatav Rashba al shem harayvit.
Right, and that they learn this from the case of the Zorah B'Sheila that.
How do you learn from the Zorah B'Sheila? You didn't learn the Gemara with us.
I learned the sugya, but I think they're saying that's like a special case, right? That is unique.
Right. What the case of the Zorah B'Sheila is that he cooks the mutter with the asur.
Right.
What's for the Kohen and what's for the Israel are cooked in the same pot. So essentially, it's mutter and asur being cooked together, and that's mevatling and isur lechatchila, and that's the chiddush that normally that's asur. So you see that the Torah holds that only in the case of Zorah B'Sheila can you mevatel an isur, which teaches us that in general the Torah says you can't mevatel an isur. So that's just the proof that to mevatel an isur is asur deraita.
Great. Great. So we have the citation, and then the Ron also writes this in the name of the
Mishmo u'mishem Ram, in his own name and in the Rambam's name.
And the Ron.
If it can't katav a Ran mishmo u'mishem Rambam perik anashay ein lachzik Russia levatel b'meiz. In other words, once you say it's an asur deraita, it's isur deraita to the mevatel, then what?
That we should not assume that we don't assume that people are so are going to flagrantly violate
the
law when it's something that's so serious.
So therefore what?
So therefore we do not punish shogeg on account of
Atumezid.
because
people will shogeg they would it happens. But mazid nobody would do that. So we're not worried. Aval. But wait, how can you distinguish that from the case of the pil echad to the yam? There, I'm not mevateling an isser, actually. I'm not. That's not an issue. There's no us. There's no issue from the Torah to throw one into the sea, because I mean maybe there's an issue about tashchida, but essentially there's no issue here. So it's not calling him a Russia if he does that.
Okay. Great. Aval b'siman kuf yud da tarovet batel berov midoraita el dechachamim hichmiru bidvarim chashuvim hichmiru gam kein liknos shogeg atu mezid. De'im natir b'shogeg yavo lahapil gam b'mezid kivan de'eno ela isor derabanan. Right, but in a different Siman,
right. There's where we talked about it before, where we talk about Isser Chashuv, Davar Chashuv, that's not Batel,
right.
that's a rabbinic law.
Yeah, like a
And
significant.
there, since the rabbinic law, people will say, rabbinic, well, okay, it's only rabbinic, so I'll throw one into the sea. And now I'll eat the rest. And anyway, it was a Batel Minatora. So people will do that. That's not called Lachzik somebody in Russia to assume that he'll do that. So therefore, Dafka by the Rabbanan, we have to be more strict because people will treat it lightly. So where it goes there, Shogegatu Mezid in the Durabanan, but in a Deraita, we don't have to, because the Torah itself will put the fear of God into people and they won't start messing about.
Okay. Right, and they're making the comparison here, like, so we're saying with anything that's like Bitul Isur Lechatchila, that we know is a Doraita Isur, so we're not worried that people will sort of take that lightly, right? But here we're sort of comparing something which is Doraita Batel Barov, that's like another, I'm not sure like the relationship between that and the Dvarim Chashuvim like exception.
Well, he's not exactly saying what I was saying before, that because one is Isser. He's saying first of all by Isser Isser Deraita, the Torah first of all never tells you. Sorry, by an Isser Deraita, it's forbidden to mevatel Isser Deraita. That's a Deraita law. Deraita is a Torah law that says don't mevatel Isser. That's an Isser Torah. But to throw something into the sea, the Torah never says don't do that, especially if it's only a thing that's to Rabbanan anyway, yes. So if the Torah for sure is not related to that. It's a rabbinic law that the Dvar Chashuv. For the Torah's perspective, there's no such thing as Dvar Chashuv. So the Torah doesn't prohibit you from throwing it into the sea. So therefore, people will be lenient to themselves because they figure, so it's mutter if it happened accidentally, so I'll do it intentionally. And anyway, it's only Yasir Rabbanan. And in other words, the whole mixture was only Yasir Rabbanan because Midoraita was Batel.
Oh, right. Sorry. Okay, they're the saying that when he's saying Tarovet here, he means of those like the
pieces of meat.
The pieces. Okay.
Yes, the pieces of meat was like 2 to 1. But it just so happened that the one that was Isser was a Devar Chashuv, and they're all Devar Chashuv. So it's not Batel, even though it's 2 to 1.
Yeah.
But I throw one into the sea, so now it's Batel.
Okay. Mihu hatosfot gavezra b'sheila katvu de'ein isur levatel isur beheter b'mezid ella midarabanan. Let me read that again. What was there? De'ein isur levatel isur beheter b'mezid ella midarabanan.
There's no prohibition. The Torah does not prohibit you. He disagrees with the Rambam and the Ravid, and he says, and the Rashba, he says, the Tosa says, no, you're allowed. The Torah doesn't prohibit you to do Mavatel and Isser Deraita.
It's only Derabanan.
Why? And what's the proof for that, by the way? Because Roa B'Shela, is it a real limud or is it an asmachta?
We had said it was an asmachta.
It's an asmachta, so you can't really tell me it's a Torah law, says Tosfos.
Good. Okay, so fine. So Tosfot who think it's only Derabanan to do this. Great. But Tzarich liyashev k'mosh katav tchila uve'isur v'heter ha'aruch klal kaf daled.
What does it mean? Tzarich liyashev k'mosh katav b'tchila.
Sorry, we have to.
What is the tchila? What was that explanation?
The
way he said that once you throw one away, it's not here in front of us anymore. So therefore, people will be more lenient, not because of the right to the Rabbanan, but just because whether the Isser is still here
it's
or it's
not
gone
here
out of the
anymore.
world.
Right. Well, right. I guess before we were saying if the whole argument before was resting on this idea that people will take it more seriously and be more careful when there's like this high stakes Isor at play. That if they're saying that like if you hold like Tosfot who actually say, no, the stakes are only Derabanan, that we can't necessarily make that same argument that people will be careful. Does that sound right?
Right, that's the other argument.
Okay. Okay. And so then in the Isser V'Heter Ha'aruch, Tiritz the Divrei Rabbeinu, Shebekan Iri Shabatel B'Shogeg, Kodem Shenoda Hatarovet, Hilkach Lo Kansu Shogeg Atu Mezid, Siman Kuf Yud, Iri B'Mapil, La'achar Shenoda Hatarovet, Chule. Okay, and so the Isser V'Heter makes the territory between these two opinions that we have from the tour. That okay, he's in this case he's
back to
talking
Noda.
about yeah, right. In this case, he's talking about when it was before you were aware. And that is why we are not going to punish Shogeg because of Mazid, but in Siman Kuf Yud that we were referencing, where he is more Machmir, that is
After is
afterwards.
Noda.
Yeah.
So we're back to this Noda idea. Okay, thank you. So let's summarize. What did we see here? First of all, we saw that there's a machloket rishonim if mivatli and isser lechatchila is also the writer or the rabbanan. And second, we saw that basically sometimes your gozer shogegatu mezid, and sometimes you're not, and it depends on the psychology of of people and the likelihood that they will be tricking. And if it's a Rabbanan law, it might be more likely that they trick, so therefore we should go there. Or if it's yeah, and there's another possible explanation. Yeah, Joel.
I just a couple of things that occur. One is his ve'od explanation of that the chashivut means that you're not batel derabanan, and people aren't going to take that as seriously. So we made a knas of shogat atimezid. Doesn't seem to line up with the Beit Yosef's explanation that there's differences between mivatel and hipil. It seems to be something different. And also in that case, if you hold that version of the Bach, then you would say that would occur for any derabanan, right? If I have a Isur derabanan and I add like a lach belach and I add mayim, right? That would also be a problem. You would also say there we have a gezerah atu shogeg atu mezid as well.
That's true. And therefore what? And therefore the debate Yosef should have related to that, you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that the Bach actually should relate that to what's coming up in the Beit Yosef, right? Where he seems to think we're a little bit more lenient in some cases about Derabanan.
All right, good point. Thank you. We have a few minutes. Maybe I'll just read one more part here. I think we're going to finish this Siman in 2 weeks' time. Next week, Joel is going to teach Biria, but then we'll come back. We'll revisit this Siman because it is a very important Siman, I think, and has a lot of interesting and important halachot. But here we have one Beit Yosef that's not too long that relates to what we're still talking about, and that's the for me. I have to turn back a page. It's ha de ein mevatli nisr lechatchila, because that's sort of our topic also still. Everyone's with me? Everyone has that? Yeah? Okay. So it says, "Had ein mevatlin iser lechatchila katav Haran b'perach gida nashe gabezroa b'sheila min ha'ayel shedat Tosfot she'eno ela midrabanan." It's rabbinic law. Aval midoraita shari. Aval arayvid katav de midoraita. Okay, that's what we saw. Fine. That's just saying there's a machloket between the Ravid and the Tosfot whether it's deraita or rabbanan to mevatel iser. Next piece. Umasha katav Rabbeinu shemekevan de mekaven laharbot afilu hu min b'mino v'aheter riba ala iser eno batel kevan shir riba b'mezid. So in other words, we have a case of min b'mino, which only according to the Torah, what does min b'mino require? Rov. Okay, and you have Rov here. And you have Rov here. Min b'mino v'aheter rabba ala iser. You have a Rov. But now you added more water to get 60. And the 60 was, of course, rabbinic. The 60 you needed for rabbinic, so you added more water. Eino batel kevan sheriba b'mezid. That's what the Torah said. V'kein kasav Rashba b'Toras Abayis v'hevi raya midigarsina b'perach hanezikin v'rami the Rabbi Yehuda ad Rabbi Yehuda. That was our Gemara. We bring a contradiction between two different statements of Rabbi Yehuda. B'durabanan, klomar, in a durabanan case, klomar mishum d'le'el mine. Earlier in the Gemara, amrinan gabe amevashel b'Shabbos, talking about cooking on Shabbos. Hikanis Rabbi Yehuda shogegatu mezid b'duraita. That's when it was a duraita law. And he said, if you cooked b'shogeg on Shabbos, you also can't eat it, just like if you did it b'mezid. Even though shogeg maybe would be mutter. But he says, kones shogeg atu mezid. Aval d'Rabbanan lo kanis. But if you hadn't done Isur d'Oraita like cooking, then he wouldn't have been kones. Umishum hachi Ramina and Mididei, Lididei, and only on the rabbinic part did we have a problem with him. Titania, Naflu, V'nitpatsu echad shogeg, ve'echad mezid, lo yalu, divrei Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. So you see here, he says also rabbinic law because it's Dvar Chashuv, and that's only rabbinic law. These nuts are Dvar Chashuv, they're important nuts, and therefore they're not Batel. And he says, therefore, we're going to the shogeg atu mezid. So we are konis b'drabanan. In other words, by the nuts, we're konis drabanan. But by the bishul, if it was a rabbinic bishul, he would have been said as mutter. We wouldn't have been konis. So you see, the machloket is dafka in the rabbinic realm. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon omrim b'shogeg ya'alu b'mezid lo ya'alu. And here in our case where it's min b'mino, echad b'trei would be batel. And the fact that if a rabbanan hu de gazru, and the rabbis say you need 60, v'kakanis Rabbi Yehuda shogegatu mezid, and yet he's konas shogegatu mezid. So it's in a rabbinic law. Va'anan kaimalan ki Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbi Shimon. Mikol makom kulhu modu de'im naflu b'mezid kansinan le'eva asur. V'dash ha'Rambam lo chilek v'perush ben shogeg l'mezid v'af al pi ken yesh lilmod midivarav shehu mechalech b'neihem. This is not important. So I guess he's just really explaining the Gemara. Does anyone? Yeah, he's really just explaining why there's the argument in the Gemara. Okay, we're going to stop here. We didn't finish everything. We didn't get to the Shulchan Aruch.
I was just going to ask: is he trying to show that Knas was only considered in the case of was being specifically considered in the case of a Derabanan? That was what the Rami was.
Well, the Rami is the Rami is showing a contradiction. Whether in the Rabbanan cases are we goes there, which kind of relates to the to the Bach, who said that dafka in rabbinic laws we may be more likely to be konis because people treat them more lightly. Okay, I think we'll stop here.
This is very Yesodistic. These are all the principles. Not all of them, but a good number of them. Yes, Shkayach, thank you.
Okay, shkach everybody. Next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Shabbos
Next week is Birya, so prepare that, and we'll come back to this, as I said.
Good Shabbos.